Imagine you're a baby capybara. You weigh less than a house cat. Everything wants to eat you. Jaguars, caimans, giant snakes, birds of prey. The world is basically one long list of things trying to turn you into lunch. And then, something strange happens. A monkey spots danger and sounds an alarm. A bird lands nearby and starts warning the group. A turtle drifts closer and shares the safety of its resting spot. None of these animals are your family. They're not even your species. And yet somehow, they're helping. Which raises a question that becomes stranger the longer you think about it. Why do some animals help completely different species? Not tolerate them, not ignore them. Actually, help them. Because from a purely selfish perspective, that shouldn't happen. Evolution is often described as a competition. Survive, reproduce, pass on your genes. If that's the whole story, helping another species seems like a terrible investment, and yet nature keeps doing it again and again and again. The deeper scientists look, the more examples they find. Dolphins protecting swimmers from sharks, ravens guiding wolves toward prey, whales rescuing seals from killer whales, dogs adopting abandoned kittens, and every one of those stories seems to break the rules, at least at first. Let's start with one of the most famous examples ever recorded. In 2004, marine biologists witnessed something remarkable. A humpback whale encountered a seal being hunted by orcas. The whale could have ignored it. The seal wasn't related. The seal wasn't useful. The seal wasn't a humpback whale. But instead, the humpback repeatedly lifted the seal onto its chest and pushed it out of danger. Researchers have since documented multiple similar events. Not once, not twice, many times. Humpback whales have been observed intervening when killer whales attack seals, sea lions, and even other whale species. And here's the part that keeps scientists arguing. These rescues can be risky. They require energy. They create danger. They provide no obvious reward. So why do it? One possibility is that the whales aren't trying to save the victim. They may simply hate the attack. Killer whales often target humpback calves. Over millions of years, humpbacks evolved strong defensive responses against orca attacks. When they hear distress calls, they rush toward the sound. The response may be so deeply wired that they react regardless of who is being attacked. In other words, the whale may not be thinking, "I want to save that seal." It may simply be thinking, "Something is being hunted, stop it." And somehow, the seal benefits. Already, the story is more complicated than it first appeared, but it gets stranger, because some animals seem to help other species in ways that can't easily be explained by instinct alone. Consider dolphins. There are dozens of documented cases of dolphins supporting injured swimmers at the surface, guiding lost humans toward shore, and surrounding vulnerable animals with protective circles. Scientists remain cautious about interpreting these behaviors, but the patterns are difficult to ignore. Dolphins possess some of the largest brains relative to body size in the animal kingdom. They recognize themselves in mirrors. They learn socially. They communicate through complex vocal systems, and they appear capable of understanding relationships beyond simple reflexes, which leads to an uncomfortable possibility. Maybe some animals aren't just reacting. Maybe they're evaluating situations. Maybe they're making choices. And if that's true, helping another species becomes much more interesting, because now we're not talking about instinct. We're talking about judgment. Here's a fact that genuinely surprised researchers. Cleaner fish run businesses, not literally, but close. Across coral reefs, cleaner wrasse establish cleaning stations where larger fish line up to have parasites removed, predators, prey, species that would normally attack one another, all waiting peacefully for service. The cleaner fish gains food. The larger fish gains health. Everybody wins. This relationship is called mutualism, and it's one of the most common reasons animals help other species. The help isn't free. It's a trade. Oxpecker birds remove ticks from large mammals. Clownfish protect sea anemones. Sea anemones protect clownfish. Certain shrimp clean parasites from fish. Fish protect shrimp from predators. Nature is filled with partnerships, not because. Animals are kind because cooperation works. Sometimes the fastest way to survive is together. But mutualism still doesn't explain everything, because occasionally animals help with no visible benefit at all. And that's where things become fascinating. In Kenya, researchers documented a lioness adopting baby antelopes. Not once, multiple times. Think about how bizarre that is. A predator protecting prey. The lioness didn't eat them. She guarded them, stayed near them, defended them from danger. Eventually, the antelopes usually died because the relationship couldn't last forever, but for a period of time, the normal rules disappeared. Scientists proposed several explanations: hormonal responses, maternal instincts, behavioral confusion, yet none fully explain why the lioness continued protecting animals she would normally hunt. Sometimes biology produces outcomes even biology struggles to explain. And maybe that's because evolution isn't designing perfect logic. It's building flexible brains that occasionally produce surprising results. The more intelligent an animal becomes, the less predictable its behavior often becomes. Which brings us to crows. Crows are astonishing. They remember faces, solve puzzles, use tools, teach information to other crows, and perhaps most importantly, they understand social relationships. Researchers have found evidence that crows track who helps them and who harms them. They build reputations. They remember individuals. In some cases, people who regularly feed crows report receiving gifts in return. Buttons, metal fragments, small shiny objects. Whether the crow experiences gratitude exactly as humans do remains unknown. But something social is happening. A relationship is being formed. And once animals begin tracking relationships, helping behavior becomes easier to understand, because helping is often an investment, not necessarily in food, not necessarily in genes, but in future interactions, in trust, in predictability, in social stability. Humans do this constantly. We help strangers we'll never meet again. We donate blood. We rescue animals. We hold doors open. Many of these actions have no immediate reward, yet they still happen, partly because social species evolve brains that value cooperation, and humans are not the only social species. Elephants provide another extraordinary example. When elephants encounter distressed individuals, they often respond immediately. They touch with their trunks. They remain nearby. They offer reassurance. What's remarkable is that these behaviors sometimes extend beyond their own species, and this raises perhaps the biggest question in the entire discussion. What if helping another species isn't really about species at all? What if it's about recognizing vulnerability? Think about that. A crying infant, an injured animal, a frightened companion. Across many species, certain signals seem universal: pain, fear, distress, helplessness. The details differ, but the pattern remains recognizable. And if an animal has evolved to respond to those signals within its own group, sometimes that response may spill across species boundaries, not because evolution planned it, because the mechanism is flexible. A brain designed to notice suffering may occasionally notice suffering everywhere. That's a profound idea. Now let's zoom out, because the deeper lesson here isn't really about whales or dolphins or crows. It's about the story we've been telling ourselves. For centuries, humans placed themselves on one side of a giant divide. Us on one side, animals on the other, reason on one side, instinct on the other. But every decade, that wall gets shorter. Animals use tools. Animals teach. Animals grieve. Animals cooperate. Animals remember. Animals form friendships. Animals help. Not always. Not perfectly. Neither do we. The difference keeps shrinking. And maybe that's the real surprise. Maybe the question isn't why animals help other species. Maybe the question is why we're still surprised when they do. Because life on Earth has never been a collection of isolated creatures. It's a network, a web of relationships, millions of species influencing one another every day. Competing sometimes, cooperating sometimes, hurting sometimes, helping sometimes, and every so often, that web produces a moment so unexpected it forces us to rethink everything. A whale lifting a seal, a dog caring for a kitten, a dolphin supporting an injured swimmer, a crow remembering a kindness, tiny moments, but they point towards something larger. The possibility that the instinct to help did not begin with us, that long before humans wrote stories about compassion, pieces of that story were already being written in oceans, forests, grasslands, and skies. And if that's true, then perhaps kindness is older than humanity itself. Maybe it has been here, all along, quietly surviving, passed down across millions of years, waiting for us to notice.